The ultimate tournament of everything.
Welcome to the Tournament of Everything Scouting Report, where we take a look at one competitor in the vastness of infinity and figure out what makes them competitive against literally anything else.
Yes, truly, infinity is a bustling bouquet of blooms, one might say. And here in these scouting reports, we like to just take one single petal and pluck it off of there, take a look at it, break it down, and see how it may fare when it inevitably shows up in the ultimate tournament of everything. So, Rob, why don't you tell us which competitor we will be taking a preeminent deep dive into tonight?
Our competitor today is certainly a dainty flower, and that is the 1925 Rose Bowl.
Holy cow, would you just look at that? Now, this is a beautiful flower to just bloom right in season here. And it was a competition unto itself, the collegiate football game. This was the 11th Rose Bowl, and it seems that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish competed and won against Stanford University by a score of 27-10.
The game featured not one, but two legendary coaches, Knute Rockne of Notre Dame and Pop Warner in his first year at Stanford. The game also featured the Four Horsemen of Notre Dame. Elmer Layden of Notre Dame and Ernie Nevers of Stanford were named the Rose Bowl Players of the Game when the award was created in 1953, and selections were made retroactively.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't know that Pop Warner was an actual person, but it appears that he was, and he played in this very game. Now, this game was the first appearance for Notre Dame in any postseason bowl game. It was the second appearance for Stanford in a bowl game since their appearance in the, quote, first tournament East-West football game, which would become later known as the 1902 Rose Bowl. This was also the first appearance of Notre Dame football team on the West Coast and eventually led to the founding of Notre Dame USC rivalry.
Yeah, and this was even the first time a wire photo, known at the time as a telepix, was transmitted of a bowl game. So they have been in digital media since apparently digital media was a thing. Now, to tell you a little bit about the two teams, Stanford, at the time, Pacific Coast Conference teams played a very limited conference schedule. Teams played from 3 to 5 conference opponents in an 8-game schedule. Stanford defeated Occidental and had a narrow 7-0 win against Olympic Club. They then defeated Oregon in their opening PCC conference game, and then Idaho. And that was their last close game. They then beat everybody by a lot. They beat Montana 41-3. They beat the California Golden Bears, both teams undefeated at the time. Stanford was 3-0, and Cal was 2-0-1. Thousands packed the stadium, and it was tied, giving Stanford sole rights to first place.
Holy cow. Now let's take a look at these Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They had started to garner interest from the Rose Bowl committee to play a PCC opponent for the 1925 football season. It seems the famous Rockne and the Notre Dame administration realized how lucrative an annual trip to LA would be for the football program, and their West Coast alumni began lobbying Rockne to bring the team to the Rose Bowl as a season finale on a yearly basis. So there was a lot of power behind them. Also, there was a lot of power in them. They had a great team and a great season. Their quarterback Harry Stuttre. They had left halfback Jim Crowley, Don Miller, Elmer Layden. I see here a picture of Elmer Layden intercepting a pass by Ernie Nevers. He said, "Not today," and looks like it's all in black and white though, so it's kind of tough to see the colors of the jerseys, but that's all right. Looks like they also, Notre Dame, in this season notched its 200th victory in a 34-3 win over Georgia Tech. This was their homecoming game in November of 1924, and their only other close game in that entire season came against Northwestern at Soldier Field, where they won 13-6.
Now, this game was not close. The Irish scored 3 touchdowns on Stanford turnovers, of which there were 8. They had otherwise dominated the Fighting Irish. Apparently, Elmer Layden scored 3 touchdowns for Notre Dame, and Elmer Nevers, an All-American two-way player for Stanford, played all 60 minutes, rushing for 114 yards, more yardage than all 4 in the backfield for Stanford. But that would not be enough for Stanford, and Notre Dame would go on to win 27-10.
Yeah, it's tough to win when you're going to turn the ball over 8 times. Now, I can see here a scoring breakdown. Looks like 2 of those interceptions were returned for 70-plus yard interception touchdown returns. I mean, that's pretty awesome football watching. So a hugely significant game, and it would have ripples through the future. The next year, USC invited Notre Dame to a home-and-home series, which was the beginning of their rivalry. Looks like before this rivalry had started and the game that we're talking about now, the furthest that this team had traveled west to play was Nebraska and Kansas. So, yeah, they were really stretching out and extending their hopes for victory.
Now, this game was Notre Dame's last bowl appearance for almost 100 years, and they did not appear in any bowl game until the 1970 Cotton Bowl Classic. In 2007, the UCLA Bruins hosted the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the Rose Bowl Stadium, where the Irish won yet again, this time 20-6.
Yeah, and so rivalries can only really take place if you're both competitive and both playing all the time. It looks like by the reading of this, Notre Dame is pretty much rivals with everybody, including but not limited to Stanford, which is they play each other. They would go on to play each other in 1942, again in 1963 and 64, but the modern series began in 1988, and it's been played annually except for 1995-96. And as of 2021, Notre Dame actually leads this series 21-13.
Now, another series that's 21-13 could be this episode of this podcast, depending on when you're listening to it and depending on what you're comparing it against. But that's okay. If we're not winning today, we might be tomorrow, because there will be an episode of this every day of the week. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you'll even get 18 competitors compared against each other. So who knows? We could run up the score.
That's right. And we're not afraid to do so. And we're not even afraid to take it into overtime. Speaking of overtime, if you've got a little bit of time, we would really appreciate it if you would rate 5 stars, comment wherever you can. Tell your friends. We got a Facebook group. You can check out. We've got some sweet merch and swag there on Redbubble, and you can find the link on our Facebook group. But more importantly, you can find us every single day here for you on
The ultimate turkey of everything.